Welcome back to Flight Club Reviews. Today we're talking about a micro drone that you probably think you know well, the Flywoo Flylens 85. Although this time, we're talking about the all-new version with the O4 Air Unit Pro. And whereas most reviewers have focused on this drone's out-of-the-box performance as a micro-class Cinewhoop, I'll be taking it one step further, turning this 2-inch micro drone into a formidable professional imaging tool, complete with GPS and remote ID. And if we're successful, it means you can have it all. Indoor stability, outdoor performance, full FAA compliance, and even GPS return to home in a palm-sized airframe. In the eyes of most people, the size of this drone makes it seem like a toy. Can it be used in a professional imaging workflow, flying in places that other drones would be a disturbance, and still getting the shot? Well, let's take off and find out. At its core, this is a 2-inch 2S Cinewhoop built around the full DJI O4 Pro system. And I do mean that literally. The heaviest components on this drone, besides the battery, are the camera and video transmission system itself. Flywoo lists the dry weight of this drone at 87.5 grams, which matches up with my experiences in the lab. When you add one of my favorite batteries to fly, the Flywoo ADC 1000 mAh Explorer 2S, it comes right to 137 grams. Now, this isn't the final weight for a professional build-out anyway. That brings us to a total of 145 grams. That's roughly an additional 8 grams when we account for the remote ID module, GPS, and TPU mounts that are needed to hold all that extra equipment on the rear of the drone. And while I have drones that are lighter than this, some weighing half as much at takeoff, this is the lightest system that I would trust to carry a full DJI O4 Pro system and fly in live environments where stability, safety, and consistency are top-line requirements. During my previous review with the Flywoo Firefly 18, I noticed that I enjoyed flying batteries that were on the larger end of the drone's capability. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing here. We'll be flying the 750 and 1000 mAh Flywoo Explorer 2S batteries. In the box, you get the drone itself, extra 2-inch props, a right-angle USB-C connector which makes getting footage off of the O4 Pro Air unit just a little bit easier, a hardware kit, and a screwdriver. You also get extra camera dampeners, which I think is important because the way these are positioned, they will likely break in a serious crash. You also get extra battery holders for 550, 750, and 1000 mAh batteries. Now, if you read reviews online, you'll likely come to the impression that the community hates these battery straps. And I did too at first. They're finicky and a little bit difficult to get in the right position. But I realized that after you spend some time with them, it's a lot easier if you develop a process for taking them on and off. What I often end up doing is putting in the first tab, turning it sideways, and then pushing down the remaining tab into the back of the frame. However, even if you're not a fan, you can't deny that one of their most frustrating attributes is also perhaps the biggest selling point. And that is, if you have a 3D printer, you can make as many of these as you need. And if you happen to rip them, it doesn't really matter. You can even design your own custom battery straps, as Flywoo has published the STL files for this, just like they did with the Firefly 18. Thanks, Flywoo. The frame appears to be the same 2mm carbon that Flywoo has been producing for the last several generations, with a slight alteration by way of a metal bracket up front to accommodate the O4 Pro camera. And I hear people in the comments now, why not create a new frame for the O4 Pro? Well, my opinion is, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. This frame seems sturdy enough, and I believe is the basis of not only the Flylens, but perhaps also the Fly B. So if this is a frame that they have experience producing, and can manufacture at scale, I say don't change it. The motors are 1003 14,000 kV Flywoo branded robo motors, and they're connected to an F405 HD flight controller with built-in 12 amp ESC and ELRS receiver. This is also, I believe, the first build that I have that uses the new ICM 42688 gyro, and so I'll be exploring how to tune this aircraft for maximum performance in the coming months. In my Firefly review, I praised the inclusion of a UFL connector on their microclass flight controller, and they've again included that here. This enhances control link in situations where it matters most, and for a drone like this, which will likely be converted into a professional filmmaking tool, I really appreciate having that set up out of the box. I also like that this uses a USB-C connector to interface with Betaflight, and when I look at the flight controller, I can see that all the solder pads are nicely spaced with plenty of room around them. I like that, and it's not something I can say is common on all microclass drones. The drone arrived with Jimfan 2015 bi-blade props, and while I feel like they're great for maximizing flight time, they're subpar in almost any amount of wind, including what I would call a pleasurable breeze of between 5 and 10 miles per hour. And that's low wind compared to what I've been testing in during these last few weeks. But that's probably enough discussion. You want to see this drone fly. So I installed my rates, configured the Betaflight OSD, and lifted off. The initial flights were in the evenings after my normal work, just cruising around the neighborhood with some light freestyle. And while I had planned to fly it exactly as it came out of the box, I had some difficulty binding it to my Radiomaster GX12. I connected it to Betaflight and realized that it was running 4.5.1, which is a old version released back in July of 2024. And when I connected it to the Express LRS configurator, I realized that it was running an unreleased development version. So after correcting those issues, updating to the latest Express LRS version, 3.6.2 at the time, and the latest Betaflight release in that series, 4.5.3, I was able to bind to the receiver and take off. I also want to point out that I didn't immediately go to the new 2025.12 release of Betaflight. The first thing that I did was upgrade to the newest release in that point series, 4.5.1 to 4.5.3. This is something that's safe to do while you're debugging. but I wouldn't upgrade to the next major version due to the fact that Betaflight often interprets CLI parameters differently between major versions. And honestly, this wasn't an issue for me. But I give Flywoo a lot of credit here on the channel for doing things right out of the box, and this was an unfortunate miss. It's an issue that, while it's not huge for me, could have definitely frustrated a new pilot and caused them some unfortunate agony while getting their drone bound and ready to fly. And as I wrapped up the first pack, I felt a tremendous similarity to flying micro drones. So if you're a master Whoop pilot, flying this drone will come fast and easy. It feels light and reactive in the best way, but it also has plenty of power. The problem though is that I wouldn't fly this drone in winds greater than say 10 miles per hour because you will be pushed off your line, and I've not found a way to manage the over-damping effect in the tune. And one of the problems with this drone is that it's so light, the wind tosses it around, much like it would any other microclass drone. So while it's lightweight and performs excellently indoors, that is also a huge hindrance to being able to fly performantly outdoors in any kind of windy scenario. And I don't think it's anything wrong with the drone or the design. It's just the resistance to wind is naturally lower as a result of the size, weight, and frame design. Flying the packs down to 3.5 volts, you can expect between 3.5 and 4 minutes of light cruising on the 750 milliamp hours, and about 2 minutes and 30 if you're heavy on the throttle. For the 1000 milliamp hour batteries, you can expect upwards of 5 minutes of cruising flight time and 4 minutes if you're performing freestyle. I don't think it comes as a surprise to anyone that this drone is great at cinematic cruising. But in the hands of an experienced pilot, it is also a bit of a freestyle beast. It surprised me how well it could pull out of dives, even though the technique required was very finicky. I had to be careful to not raise the throttle until I had plenty of momentum going forward out of the bottom of the dive, or the drone would attempt to overcorrect and rock side to side. But if you're in an environment with little to no wind, it loves yaw spins in the backyard. But honestly, outside of those parameters, the drone becomes increasingly unpredictable. And so my recommendation is fly it indoors, fly it gently, until, at the very least, we have an improved PID tune from Flywoo. When it came time to open the drone up and modify it for professional work, I found it was incredibly easy. Just 4 screws. I was also able to create a clean routing path for the copper shielded signal wires for the GPS and remote ID module as well. One thing I do want to call out is that space in this frame is at an absolute premium. I had to abandon my original plan to install the Phoenix UAS remote ID module and the associated GPS and compass unit because there wasn't room for 2 boards. Realizing that the compass wasn't a feature I required on this drone, I returned to the drawing board and installed a Newbie Drone BID remote ID module with GPS instead. This allowed me to use a single board solution, and even though I wasn't able to get the compass, I'm still able to maintain full return to home and FAA compliance. So, after a few weeks of flying, tuning, and modifying the Flylens 85, I don't think it's a toy, but it's also not the perfect drone for all scenarios. There will always be situations where, especially here in Colorado, that I choose to fly my 2.5-inch Cinewhoops that also carry the full DJI O4 Pro air unit. And especially during seasonal changes like we're going through right now, there'll be more opportunities to fly the larger drones than to fly this, especially outdoors. And while I haven't reached a full conclusion, at the end of my flight testing, I had the opportunity to try the HQ Prop 2-inch ultralight tri-blades, which managed to make the control a little bit sharper, especially in some of those situations where I felt the quad was overdamping. Where does that leave us? Well, in the right hands and in the right environment, this is a powerful professional imaging tool. There will never be a case where it replaces my larger 2.5-inch Cinewhoops. But I also don't think that was ever the question. It fills a gap that many drones simply can't. Small, compliant, and able to fly in spaces where people would otherwise be upset about the larger drone and the noise it makes. I'd love to push it further by doing some indoor flying and gathering footage for high-energy concert edits. But as always, setup and tuning are going to determine how far you can push it. I'll also be revisiting the tune in a future video, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this review, please check out the links down in the description. And if you're going to buy your own Flylens 85, use the referral links down there. Thanks for flying with me. This has been Flight Club Reviews.